40 minutes apart by train. Same country, same mountains in the background. But in one Swiss town, 3,000 francs a month gets you a two-bedroom flat with a balcony and a view. In the other, that same 3,000 won't even cover a studio without natural light. Switzerland doesn't just have expensive housing. It has pockets where the rent alone would bankrupt most households in Europe. And the strange part? These aren't always the places you'd guess. Some of the most overpriced postcodes in this country aren't in Zurich. They're not in Geneva. They're in villages so small you could walk from one end to the other in 8 minutes, and still not afford the cheapest apartment on the street. We're counting down 10 places where renting isn't just expensive, it's exclusionary. Be places where landlords don't even bother listing online because the tenants come through private networks. Places where the average rental price would make a London banker pause. And here's what makes this list different. We're not just naming luxury towns. We're pulling apart the why. Why does one lakeside village cost 3 times more than another? What's actually driving these prices? And who's really living there? By the end, you might rethink everything you assumed about where wealth actually sits in Switzerland. Let's start the countdown. Before we get into the list, let's set the frame. This isn't a ranking of the most beautiful places in Switzerland. It's not a travel wish list. This is about where housing costs have crossed from expensive into unreachable for anyone without serious wealth. We're looking at actual rental data, local cost of living pressure, and the economic forces behind each place. Some of these towns are globally famous. Others, most people outside Switzerland have never heard of. Every entry gets the same treatment. What the place looks like on paper, what it actually costs to live there, who can realistically afford it, and what trade-off comes with the postcode. No sugarcoating, no postcard fantasy. If a place has a beautiful lakefront but a brutal rental market, we're saying both. And one more thing. The ranking escalates. The higher we go, the more extreme the prices, the tighter the market, and the more revealing the story behind the cost. So if you think number 10 sounds steep, wait until you hear what's at the top. Number 10. Montreux, Vaud. Starting with a place most people associate with jazz festivals and Lake Geneva sunsets. Montreux. On the surface, Montreux looks like a reasonable Swiss luxury town. Lakefront promenades, a mild climate by Swiss standards, and a cultural scene that draws visitors from all over Europe. It's the kind of place people imagine retiring to. But here's the part they skip. Montreux has become a magnet for wealthy international residents, particularly from the Middle East and Eastern Europe, who've pushed rental prices well beyond what the local economy would justify. A 2-bedroom apartment in the town center now regularly lists above 3,200 Swiss francs per month. Closer to the lake, you're looking at 4,000 to 5,000. And these aren't luxury penthouses. These are standard apartments with standard finishes. The local job market doesn't match those numbers. Montreux's economy is heavily tourism-dependent, which means seasonal work, lower than average wages for the canton, and not a lot of corporate anchor employers. So you've got a town where prices are set by outside money, not by what people who work there can actually afford. What Montreux does offer is genuine quality of life. The weather is softer than most of Switzerland. The lake setting is hard to beat. Public transport connects you to Lausanne in about 20 minutes. And culturally, there's more going on than in towns twice its size. But the trade-off is real. If you're not bringing wealth into Montreux, if you need to earn it there, you'll feel the squeeze fast. Now, if the gap between what the town looks like and what it costs to actually live in it is one of the widest in the country, and Montreux is only the start. From here, the numbers climb fast, and the disconnect between price and local reality gets sharper. Number 9. Lucerne, Altstadt, and Lakeside districts. Lucerne. Next up, a city that millions of tourists visit every year without realizing how punishing it is for residents. Lucerne's old town and lakeside neighborhoods are some of the most photographed areas in Switzerland. Chapel Bridge, the waterfront, the mountain backdrop. It all looks effortless. What doesn't look effortless is finding a flat there for under 4,000 francs a month. The tourist economy has reshaped Lucerne's rental market in a way most visitors never see. Property owners in the Altstadt and along the lake increasingly favor short-term holiday lets or premium long-term tenants. A standard three-room flat near the water can push 4,500 Swiss francs monthly, and availability is tight. Some buildings haven't had a vacancy in years. Here's what people miss about Lucerne. It's not a huge city. The canton has around 420,000 people, and the city itself is compact. So when tourism drives up demand for central housing, there isn't a massive suburban ring absorbing the pressure. You're either in or you're commuting from somewhere significantly less glamorous. On the upside, Lucerne has strong transport links, a growing tech and education sector, and a lifestyle that blends urban convenience with mountain access in a way very few Swiss cities can match. It's also less corporate than Zurich, and which gives it a more livable feel day to day. But the reality check is this. The parts of Lucerne that make it famous are increasingly unaffordable for people who aren't already wealthy. The gap between visiting Lucerne and living in Lucerne is enormous. One is a weekend. The other is a financial commitment that most Swiss salaries in that region struggle to support. The next entry takes that pressure and concentrates it into a single neighborhood inside a much bigger city. Number 8. Zurich Seefeld, Zurich. Then there's Seefeld, the lakeside district inside Zurich that prices out Zurich itself. Zurich is already one of the most expensive cities on the planet. That's not news. But within Zurich there are tiers, and Seefeld sits right at the top. This neighborhood tucked along the eastern shore of Lake Zurich, it has become the default address for senior executives, private bankers, and international professionals who want walkable luxury without leaving the city. Monthly rent for a two-bedroom in Seefeld regularly crosses 5,000 Swiss francs. For anything with a lake view, you're looking at 6,000 to 7,000. And the wait lists are real. Some property managers in this district report 18-month queues for desirable units. What makes Seefeld interesting isn't just the price. It's the insulation. This is a neighborhood that has essentially decoupled from the rest of Zurich's rental market. Wages in the city are high by global standards, but Seefeld rents assume a household income that puts you in the top 5% nationally. If you earn a solid Zurich salary and you're not in finance or senior management, Seefeld is still out of reach. The upside is obvious. You're living in one of the most desirable urban settings in Europe. Lake access, excellent restaurants, the opera house within walking distance, and a level of maintenance and safety that feels almost curated. It's beautiful. No argument there. But here's the catch that nobody puts in the brochure. Seefeld's rental yields are so high that landlords have almost no incentive to sell. The market barely moves. And for renters, that means limited options, zero negotiating leverage, and prices that only seem to trend in one direction. What comes next, though, isn't a city neighborhood. It's a ski town. And the economics there are even more extreme. Number 7. Verbier, Valais. This next place is beautiful, world-famous, and almost impossible to live in year-round if you work for a living. But Verbier is one of the premier ski resorts in the Alps. Every winter, it fills up with high-net-worth visitors from London, Paris, and the Gulf states. The chalets are stunning. The terrain is legendary. And the rental market is built entirely around people who don't need to think about money. A two-bedroom apartment during peak season can go for 8,000 to 12,000 Swiss francs per month. Even off-season, you're unlikely to find anything below 3,500 Swiss francs, and the quality at that price point is basic. The economics of Verbier are structured around seasonal luxury tourism, not residential life. And this creates a problem that doesn't get enough attention. The people who actually keep Verbier running, the ski instructors, restaurant workers, hotel staff, and shop employees, can't afford to live in the town they serve. Many commute from down the valley, sometimes 45 minutes or more each way. Others cram into shared worker housing that wouldn't look out of place in a budget university town. There's a deep irony in that. Verbier's brand is luxury and exclusivity. But the labor force that delivers that experience is priced out entirely. It's a resort town in the truest sense, built for visitors, not for residents. If you do have the budget, the lifestyle is extraordinary. Off-piste skiing that rivals anything in the world, a social scene that draws international crowds, and mountain views that justify every cliché. But calling Verbier a place to live is generous. It's a place to spend money. Living there is a different proposition entirely. Now we move to a town where the wealth isn't seasonal, it's structural, and it's been building for decades. Number 6. Zug, Town Center. Zug. Now to the town that rewrote its own economy with a tax rate. Zug is famous in finance circles and almost nowhere else. It's a small, quiet town on the shores of Lake Zug, about 25 minutes south of Zurich. On paper, it looks modest. In reality, it's one of the wealthiest municipalities in Europe, and the rental market reflects that completely. The canton of Zug has some of the lowest tax rates in Switzerland, which already has some of the lowest rates in Europe. That single policy decision, maintained for decades, turned Zug into a magnet for multinational holding companies, crypto firms, commodity traders, and wealthy individuals looking to minimize their tax burden legally. The result? A town center where two-bedroom apartments start around 4,000 Swiss francs and climb steeply. Near the lake or in newer developments, 5,000 to 6,000 is normal. And unlike other expensive Swiss towns, Zug doesn't feel luxurious in the traditional sense. It's clean and functional, but it's not glamorous. You're paying for the fiscal address, not the architecture. The upside is infrastructure. Zug is incredibly well connected. Zurich is a short train ride away. Schools are well funded, and the town operates with Swiss-level efficiency at every level. For families with high incomes, it's a strategic move that makes financial sense. But for everyone else, Zug is a masterclass in economic displacement. Local workers, teachers, and public employees increasingly can't afford to live in the town they serve. The affordability gap in Zug isn't caused by beauty or tourism. It's caused by fiscal engineering. And that distinction matters because it means the pressure isn't seasonal or cultural, it's permanent. As long as the tax policy holds, the prices hold with it. The next entry takes that wealth concentration and dials it up even further, in a place with a far more famous name. If you've made it this far, you've already seen towns where renting a flat costs more than most Europeans earn in a month. But the list gets sharper from here. The next 5 places aren't just expensive. They're exclusive in ways that go beyond price tags. Some of these towns actively discourage new residents. Stick around, because the top 3 will probably surprise you. Number 5. St. Moritz, Graubünden. And here's where seasonal luxury became permanent exclusion. St. Moritz is the name people think of when they picture Swiss wealth. It hosted the Winter Olympics twice. It invented alpine winter tourism, and it carries a global brand that few mountain towns can match. But behind the brand, the housing market tells a harder story. Rental properties in St. Moritz are scarce because most of the high-end housing stock is owned by ultra-wealthy individuals who use it a few weeks a year and leave it empty the rest of the time. What's available for long-term rent tends to start around 4,500 Swiss francs for something modest and climb to well over 10,000 Swiss francs for anything premium. What makes St. Moritz unusual is the vacancy rate. There are streets in this town with beautiful buildings where the lights are off for 10 months out of 12. The housing exists. It's just not for you. This has real consequences. The year-round population of St. Moritz has been shrinking for decades. Young people leave. Service workers commute from lower valley towns like Samadan or Pontresina. And the town itself increasingly functions as a set piece, pristine but hollow for most of the year. If you're wealthy enough to rent here during the off-season, you get something most places can't offer. Engadine light, high-altitude air, world-class hiking, and a level of silence that feels almost theatrical. It's genuinely beautiful. But the trade-off is isolation. Not geographic isolation. St. Moritz is well connected by rail. Social isolation. The year-round community is thin. The cultural calendar outside of high season is limited, and the feeling of living in a town that was designed for someone else's holiday never fully goes away. Now we move to the Zurich Gold Coast, where the wealth is quieter, but the rents are just as loud. Number 4. Küsnacht, Zurich. This next place doesn't have a famous name. It doesn't have a ski resort, a jazz festival, or a palace hotel. What it has is some of the highest per capita wealth in Switzerland, and a rental market that reflects it with precision. Küsnacht sits on the western shore of Lake Zurich, in what locals call the Gold Coast. It's a residential suburb, barely 15 minutes from Zurich's city center by train. Tree-lined streets, immaculate gardens, lake views. It looks peaceful. It is peaceful, and it's ferociously expensive. A two-bedroom apartment in Küsnacht typically starts around 4,500 Swiss francs per month. For a family-sized flat or anything with direct lake proximity, 6,000 to 8,000 is standard. And unlike Verbier or St. Moritz, these aren't seasonal prices. This is the year-round baseline. Küsnacht's appeal is its combination of proximity and privacy. You're close enough to Zurich to commute easily, but the town itself feels insulated. Quiet streets, excellent schools, low crime, high services. It's the kind of place where wealth doesn't announce itself. No flashy storefronts, no tourist crowds, just quietly expensive everything. The downside is accessibility. If you're not already in the income bracket, Küsnacht offers very little. There's no vibrant nightlife, no cultural scene to speak of, and the social environment is reserved, even by Swiss standards. It's a place optimized for established families with high incomes and low desire for excitement. For that specific profile, it's nearly perfect. For everyone else, Küsnacht is a reminder that Swiss wealth doesn't always look like a ski chalet or a lakeside palace. But sometimes it looks like a quiet suburb where the only thing louder than the birds is the rent. The next entry is louder in every sense, and it carries one of the most recognizable names in Swiss luxury. Number 3. Gstaad, Bern. Here's a village with fewer than 4,000 permanent residents and rental prices that rival central London. Gstaad, in the Bernese Oberland, has been a playground for European aristocracy, Hollywood actors, and global billionaires for the better part of a century. The village itself is tiny, but the concentration of wealth per square meter is staggering. Renting in Gstaad is an exercise in scarcity. Long-term rentals are rare because most properties are either owner-occupied holiday homes or managed as short-term luxury lets. When something does come on the market, you'd expect to pay 6,000 to 10,000 Swiss francs per month for a standard chalet apartment. High-end properties, the kind that show up in luxury real estate listings, can exceed 25,000 Swiss francs monthly. The numbers are extreme. But what makes Gstaad different from somewhere like Verbier is the year-round pretense of village life. Gstaad works hard to maintain its rustic aesthetic. No building is taller than the tallest tree, a rule enforced by local planning codes. The streets are lined with traditional chalets. It looks like a Swiss postcard on purpose. The reality underneath is more complicated. Gstaad's local economy is almost entirely dependent on wealth flowing in from outside. Restaurants, shops, and services cater to a clientele that expects five-star standards at every touchpoint. For service workers, that means high expectations, limited housing, and wages that don't come close to matching the cost of being there. The quality of life, if you can afford it, is outstanding. World-class skiing, pristine hiking trails, a famous classical music festival, and a level of exclusivity that money literally can't replicate anywhere else. But the village feel is curated. Gstaad isn't a community in the traditional sense anymore. It's a brand with a postcode. And yet, there are two places left on this list that make even Gstaad look like a reasonable option. Number 2. Wollerau, Schwyz. Now for a place that almost nobody outside Switzerland has heard of. And that's exactly how its residents like it. Wollerau is a small municipality in the canton of Schwyz, perched above Lake Zurich with views stretching across to the Alps. It has no famous landmarks, no luxury brand, and no tourist infrastructure. What it has is one of the lowest tax rates of any municipality in Switzerland, and a community of ultra-high net worth individuals who moved there specifically for that reason. The rental market in Wollerau barely exists in any public sense. Most premium properties change hands through private channels. But when listings do appear, two-bedroom apartments start around 5,000 Swiss francs per month, and villas, which make up a significant share of the housing stock, can command 15,000 to 30,000 Swiss francs monthly. What makes Wollerau fascinating is how invisible the wealth is. There are no supercars lining the streets, no designer boutiques, no rooftop bars. It's a quiet, green, an impeccably maintained municipality where the wealthiest residents are indistinguishable from retirees on a pension, until you check the property register. The advantage of Wollerau is total. Low taxes, proximity to Zurich, stunning natural surroundings, excellent schools, and near-complete privacy. For high-net-worth families who value discretion over display, it's arguably the most strategically intelligent place to live in Switzerland. The downside? Community integration is difficult. Wollerau isn't unfriendly, but it's not built for newcomers without deep pockets. Social life revolves around private circles, and the public amenities are limited for a municipality of its wealth. If you're looking for vibrancy, culture, or even a decent coffee shop within walking distance, Wollerau will disappoint you. It's a place designed for people who've already decided they don't need anything from the town they live in. And that's either its greatest strength or its most telling limitation. But the number one spot? That's a different story entirely. Number 1. Cologne, Geneva. And at the top of the list, Switzerland's single most expensive postcode. A place where even wealth feels the squeeze. Cologne sits on the southern shore of Lake Geneva, just minutes from the city center, with direct views across the water to the Jet d'Eau and the Alps beyond. It's been home to royalty, former heads of state, and some of the most powerful figures in global finance. And its rental market operates on a level that makes every other entry on this list look almost accessible. Long-term rentals in Cologne are exceptionally rare. When they appear, prices start around 8,000 Swiss francs per month for a modest villa and climb rapidly past 20,000 Swiss francs. Premium lakefront properties have been listed at 40,000 to 50,000 Swiss francs monthly. These aren't typos. These are real listings in a municipality with fewer than 6,000 residents. What drives the price isn't just the location, though the location is extraordinary. It's the combination of Geneva's international ecosystem, Switzerland's political neutrality, the canton's favorable tax regime for foreign residents, and Cologne's specific reputation as the most prestigious address in a city full of prestigious addresses. The quality of life is, predictably, exceptional. Manicured grounds, absolute security, lake access, proximity to international schools, and a level of discretion that borders on institutional. Cologne doesn't advertise itself. It doesn't need to. But the catch is revealing. Even in Cologne, residents report a strange kind of pressure. The social environment is transactional. Neighbors are diplomats, fund managers, and family office principals whose schedules orbit around global commitments, not local community. The municipality is immaculate, but feels, by many accounts, curiously empty. It's the ultimate Swiss paradox, the most coveted postcode in the country, and one of the loneliest. A place where you can afford everything, except perhaps the feeling that you actually belong somewhere. So, there it is. 10 places in Switzerland where the rent alone puts you in a financial category most people will never reach. Some of these towns are globally famous, others hide in plain sight. But they all share the same truth. Price and quality of life are not the same thing. You can pay 40,000 Swiss francs a month and still feel isolated. You can live in the most beautiful village in the Alps and never be part of it. Switzerland's rental market isn't just expensive. It's stratified in ways that reveal a lot about how wealth, policy, and geography shape everyday life. Which one of these surprised you the most? And would you actually pay that rent if your salary could cover it? Drop your answer in the comments. If this video gave you a perspective you haven't seen before, consider subscribing. We break down the real economics behind places that look perfect on the surface. Because in Switzerland, the view is always beautiful. The invoice is where it gets interesting.